Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and I'm finally back after a few months without doing any YouTube videos on my own channel, and I'm here to share with you my favorite albums of 2022 so far. This being, of course, my annual mid-year video where I share with you the 15 albums that I really liked most out of all the ones that I've heard released this year, which 2022 so far has been an incredible year for music. Lots of strong albums came out, so narrowing it down was very difficult. But I think, very happy with the 15 that ultimately made the cut for my favorites of the year so far, and that's why I want to share them with you. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting things off with the self titled Muna album, which is easily my favorite pop album of the year so far. Just killer production, songwriting, and performances, and also great personality all over this record. It's definitely one of my favorite queer pop albums of the year. Really good versatility on this one too. And yeah, I've just been playing this album a lot lately, and I hope all of you enjoy it as much as I do. Next, we have Ethel Cain with Preacher's Daughter, which has really some of the most impeccable songwriting of the year, in my opinion. Even with it being 75 minutes, it really does justify its long-winded runtime with some production that blurs genres like country, heartland rock, shoegaze, trip-hop, and even some industrial at times. And also stunning vocal arrangements across the board on this one. It's definitely a journey that is often very emotionally intense, but certainly one that I think you should check out and be able to take in all the same. Pusha T's It's Almost Dry is the next album. Push, once again, came out with a very good album. Not as good as Daytona, and I would say that there are a few kind of weak tracks in the second half, but Push really managed to continue to grow and mature since Daytona on this album. Killer production from Kanye and Pharrell on this thing. Yeah, it's just one of the best hip-hop albums of the year. Not much else I can say other than it just bangs. But probably my favorite album of the year so far would have to be Orville Peck's Bronco, which I would say this is so far probably the best country album I've heard this decade. Just, just stunning performances, very lush and just gorgeous instrumentation, and his songwriting I think has really been upped quite a few notches on this one too, because Orville Peck was one of those artists I always respected more than I actually liked, but I think this album really shows him really capitalizing on his full potential. And even with it being as many tracks as it is, and almost over an hour, it doesn't feel as long as it is. Like, it's a pretty easy record to listen to constantly. Like, I definitely can always count on this record to really amaze every time I put it on. Next is Gospel with The Loser, which is probably my favorite kind of hardcore record of the year, which hardcore music is having itself quite a year. In 2022, I mean, Soul Glow and Petrol Girls are a couple examples of really good sort of albums in that lane you should check out, but I think my favorite out of all these albums is easily this record, which is from a band that released their debut in 2005. And it's been 17 years since they dropped an album, so this is their sophomore album, their comeback record, and boy, does it slap. And it has great progressions across the songs, and the little journey it takes you on, there's not a wasted moment on it. There's incredible dynamics and production and performances on here. And yeah, it's just I'm happy I got on the wave with this band because what they're doing is so fascinating on here. Conway's album, God Don't Make Mistakes. I think this is easily my favorite thing he's ever done in terms of the writing and the production. Has this great eeriness that I think complements the raps and the subject matter, I think, really well. The features are incredibly strong. And yeah, I feel like Conway was definitely showing potential on like some of his other stuff, and I feel like here he's capitalizing on it, and I definitely think there is even more growth he could make in the future because this album just opened so many doors and has some of my favorite hip hop of the year. Um, Next is Everything Everything's Raw Data Feel, which was really a surprise for me this year. This was a real pop rock highlight for me this year so far. Like, I love the whole concept of AI helping them kind of write the songs, and even though there definitely are moments on it that are intentionally a little weird and a little goofy, um, it still like has this real like emotional depth to it as well. Like the impact and kind of the humanness of songs like Jennifer, which is easily my favorite track on here, is absolutely stunning. And then on top of that, the choruses, like these choruses did not have to go this hard. Like, so many songs on this album are just so addictive to listen to, and like Jonathan Higgs's delivery just is perfect for all of this because it's just the right amount of weird and out there for this sort of futuristic pop rock they're doing on here. Um, Next is Ghost with Impera, where the band essentially went full arena rock, and I think it works pretty well with the concept they're going for on here, which is kind of about like the rise of the civilization after the Black Plague, and also kind of reflecting on like certain religious systems like having this like toxic power to them, and it's intentionally pretty tongue-in-cheek and definitely is kind of a satire, which I would argue that's always kind of been part of their appeal, and I think this album pulls off this whole concept really well with some of their best hooks to date, and just like this album is a lot of fun to listen to. It's to listen to, and the instrumentation is so like lush and just sound. This is easily the most like big budget thing Ghost has ever put together, and yet I think it really shows them uh, further like capitalizing on the potential they've shown as a group, and I'm really curious to see where they go next because this album was a banger, no doubt about it. Next is Spiritualized with Everything Was Beautiful, another pretty lush and kind of big sounding rock album. Definitely more in the space rock lane as well. There's a bit of psychedelic touches, there's like some Baroque pop. They even try out country on one song, and it pans out better than you would expect. And uh, just the songwriting on this album too, like it's kind of emo in a way, but I think it complements the instrumentation really well. And for an album that sounds pretty loud relatively, it still like actually has really good dynamics, and like the quieter moments are every bit as powerful as the just moments where the instrumentation goes insane and just it kind of it kind of takes you into space in a way. Like, you know, these are kind of the lift-off moments of the album. And yeah, Spiritualized really surprised me with this album because I'm not the most well versed in them, but they, I think, put out a pretty special album that is one of the best albums of the year. Um, but probably my favorite rap album of the year so far has got to be Billy Wood's Ethiops. Like, how does Billy, who's about like more than a decade in his career, and I haven't really heard all his projects. I didn't get on the wave until like a few years ago, but just the growth he's shown as an artist has been really a treat to watch because I mean, this album, for example, he's giving fans kind of what they expect from him, but still like finding ways to be more dense, more experimental, and more emotionally cutting too. Like these are like some of his most cinematic sounding instrumentals he's had on his songs, and I think they just complement and really bring out the narratives that much more. And like his performances are great, the flow of the album's fantastic, and yeah, this record just yeah, it was really special album, and yeah, it's bound to be probably in my top 20 of the year when I do that list. Um, Next is probably my favorite rock album of the year so far, and that is Jack White's Fear of the Dawn, where uh, I think this album is seriously on par with his best with the White Stripes. It's just, it's so in your face and punchy. It's like a really good mix of just like those insane riffs and just the phenomenal energy that you would expect from him, while also doing some things more reminiscent of the weirder territory he's been going in with his last record, Boarding House Reach. Like, I mean, you have a Q-Tip collaboration for crying out loud that actually, yeah, like that track has been pretty divisive, but I personally really like just how unhinged and just really out there it sounds. Like he's doing a lot on there, and yet it all, I think, still comes together pretty cohesively. Um, and yeah, this album's just a lot of fun to listen to. It sounds incredible on vinyl, and yeah, just it's great to see Jack continue to prove himself as one of the most, I think, vital figures in rock music. And I'm interested to hear that album he's dropping later this month too. Next is Denzel Curry's Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, which is kind of an interesting album for me. Like, in my opinion, Taboo had slightly better singles. I mean, Clout Cobain, I would frankly call that song an emo rap classic. Like, that song has really stood the test of time really well. Uh, but I think as a whole, this is probably my favorite thing he's done in terms of the concept comes together, I think, very smoothly. The production is so dense. Uh, Lyrically, I think it's his most introspective and kind of contemplative album yet, and I think he really manages to further live up to his potential as a performer. Like, even if this album doesn't have like as many bangers as like Taboo or Zoo or even Imperial for that matter, and just the way it flows is really good too. His versatility from track to track is phenomenal, and yeah, Denzel, I think, has even more steps to go, and this album pretty much sees him uh, going well on that way, and that's why I love it so much. Um, Next is Big Thief with Dragon New War Mountain, I Believe in You. This massive 80-minute indie folk epic that I was really looking forward to, considering how much I really liked Big Thief's past work and even Adrian's recent solo stuff too. And I think this is their best album in terms of it's eclectic and all over the place, but yet it still comes together very cohesively with incredible songwriting and just stunning performances from Adrian Lenker and and it takes you on a little journey that weirdly does not feel as long as it is. Like, uh, it's actually a rare example of an 80-minute album that I've listened to at least 4 times all the way through because it's that good, but also because, yeah, it just offers so much variety that it's hard, I can't get bored listening to it. Like, I'm engaged the whole time, for sure. Um, next is Black Country New Road with Ants from Up There, the first album I really heard this year, where I was like, yes, this is an essential album for 2022, and I think it's even more dense and emotionally captivating than their debut. Like, this album really opens a lot of doors for the band, which kind of makes it all the more sad that Isaac Wood left the band, and it's definitely clear listening to this album that he was not really in a great place emotionally, and he definitely has, I think, justifiable reasons for his exit for sure. But yeah, this album, even though this band is kind of in a weird place right now, even though I have seen video online of them performing like new music at festivals, and like I've seen other members doing vocals and everything, so maybe that's the path they're gonna go. That'd be interesting to see. But either way, this album is amazing. It's definitely shows a lot of growth from their debut, and you know, fingers crossed they continue to make quality music going forward. Final project I want to mention here is FKA Twigs' CAPRISONGS, which I think was easily the first great project of the year. I know this is technically a mixtape, it's not quite an album, but still, it's no less worth checking out because I think her songwriting has matured beautifully on here. I think she really adapts to the mixtape formula, I think, incredibly well, and kind of like with Denzel Curry, also showing a lot of versatility. I mean, she's doing hip hop and pop and reggae and stuff like that. It's definitely not quite as conceptual or as cohesive as, say, the very experimental and brooding Magdalene, but still, I think this album really, or mixtape rather, opens a lot of doors for Twigs' future, and I'm really interested to see where that takes her, because this project is easily, like, I've never been, like, a huge FK Twigs fan myself, but, like, this project was, I think, pretty undeniably great, and that's why I wanted to give it a shout out here. And there you have it. Those are my favorite albums of 2022 so far. Like, all these albums are fantastic in my opinion. I highly recommend you check any of them out that you haven't. And I'm curious to hear what your favorites of the year are so far. Like, feel free to share them with me in the comments. I mean, do you agree with some of my picks? Do you have some of your own? Which, yeah, I know that's very likely, but either way, I'd love to hear what your favorite music of the year was so far. And obviously, these are not the only records that I've enjoyed this year. There's plenty of other ones that will likely be on my list, but either way, thank you for watching the video, and thank you for understanding why I haven't been making YouTube videos on my own channel in a while, but I will drop a link down below to a YouTube channel that I've been making. I've made a few collab videos on Channel BK with my friend Brian. We did a couple episodes of What's on Repeat, where we talk about new singles and albums we're into, and we even ranked Kendrick Lamar albums for an episode of a little series called Rank 'em. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, that would be the video to check out. Yeah, and that's about all I'll share with you there. This is Joshua Kirk, signing off.